Record. Hello, this is a presentation on circadian rhythms and the effect of sleep disorders on brain health. I'm Nick Andreessen,
I'm Ethan Soley.
I'm Duke Anderson.
and let's get started. So first off, what is a circadian rhythm? Circadian rhythms are physiological and behavioral cycles that usually occur within a 24-hour period. Circadian rhythms and brain waves have a really strong relationship. Basically, circadian rhythms and brainwave activity and brain signals are very related. During the daytime, when given certain signals like light and sunlight uh, and other biological functions, the brain sort of activates. It cues the brain and the body to be awake. But when you go to night and there's less sunlight and there's less of those signals, that's where the brain starts to cue slower brain waves and slower brain activity, which influences sleep and a lot of bodily behavior. So these rhythms are controlled by an internal biological clock, which is centered in the suprachiasmatic nucleus. This suprachiasmatic nucleus is located in a very small region of the brain, in the hypothalamus, and the circadian system, synchronized by the SCN, dictates the 24-hour rhythmicity of most bodily behavior, including sleep, body temperature, and hormonal levels. And once again, this is very dictated by a lot of sunlight, plus some other bodily behavior in response to uh, temperature changes and whatnot. So, continuing on this same track, how do some of these sleep disorders relate to um, brainwave activity and circadian rhythms? So, first of all, there is such a thing called night shift sleep disorder. Basically, workers who take night shifts do a lot that collides with the natural rhythm and natural phenomenon that is circadian rhythms. Since circadian rhythms is influenced a lot by light and temperature and so on, um, night shifts tend to have some more um, negative consequences on the body. So starting off here, in a review of night shift sleepiness conducted by Torbjorn Ackerstedt, PhD, a study showed that for a group of train drivers who had night shifts, a quarter had pronounced increases in alpha and theta activity. So these alpha and theta brainwaves are more on the relaxed end of the brainwave scale. In terms of circadian rhythm, this would be characterized by sleepiness, either in the late afternoon or evening when humans are trying to go to sleep, or just about when they're waking up. Um, and this brainwave activity and pattern of in their circadian rhythms has been found in long haul drivers, long haul air crews, night shift hospital workers, and more. And as you think across those categories, there are a lot of professions that have potentially dangerous consequences on their crews, on whatever they're carrying, and also just people around them. So, alongside this brain activity is slower eye movement, sleep intrusions, which is at some point during the study, it provides a story of a set of hospital workers who were working a night shift, and for some of them under study, at some point they just fell asleep without even realizing it. And anyways, so that's an example of sleep intrusions. They also exhibit relaxation and sleepiness with this brain activity. And overall, these conditions have been attributed to many accidents, which is even worse when you consider drivers, air crews, and hospital workers. So altogether, 30 to 40% of all United States truck accidents are fatigue related. This brain activity slows people down and it inhibits them from making correct decisions um, or responding in time to some stimulus. And overall, that Acrostat notes that the Exxon Valdez accident, with total damages between 5.5 and 9.5 billion dollars, and the contamination of 1,300 miles of coastline, is attributed to fatigue. Fatigue caused this amount of damage and more, which kind of shows that it's a bad thing. On to the next slide.
So it's my slide, talking about insomnia and how it affects the default mode network. And basically, the default mode network are these parts of a brain highlighted that um, essentially deal with self-referential thinking is just active during our day and then also rest. And it's self-referential thinking that includes like daydreaming, recalling memories, and even like if you have an inner monologue, stuff like that. And it helps support your emotional regulation, again, your memory and just like your introspection, your reflection on those memories, things like that. And so people with insomnia, is actually disrupted. It's getting more activity when they're at rest, and so their brain is just keeping thinking about either memories or daydreaming or whatever, and so those parts of the brain are more active. So there's increased activity when resting, and neuroimaging found that yeah, there's higher brain entropy as well, and failure to deactivate this part of the brain and this thinking leads to difficulty calming your brain down before sleep and can just mess up a lot of things throughout your sleep that are going to mess up a lot of things later, which we go to the next slide, we can talk more about those things too. So yeah, memory consolidation and sleep apnea. So basically, in normal sleep, we have a couple of phases of sleep. We have the slow wave sleep, also known as deep waves or deep sleep, which consolidates your memory, specifically your declarative memory, which deals with facts and events. And then we have REM sleep, which supports your spatial navigation and emotional memory. And during slow wave sleep, we have these sleep spindles, which are little active bursts of brain activity. So just essentially sending signals throughout your brain while you're sleeping. And then also during slow wave sleep, we have targeted memory reactivation, which strengthens specific memories. So think like certain smells or like how things taste, like targeted memory reactivation is um, kind of going on during slow wave sleep, and it's enhancing that and activating those sorts of things. So when you have sleep disorders like obstructive sleep apnea, that fragments and breaks up your sleep and reduces, obviously those two stages of sleeping. And so because of that, you're gonna have poor spatial navigation because you get that from your REM sleep. You're gonna have weaker motor memory and consolidation due to not getting those sleep spindles, and you're not going to be able to kind of recall and retain those verbal and visual memories, as well as not being able to regulate your emotions as well, and also decrease attention. So that's kind of how that activity in those parts of the brain affect your everyday life and things that are going to happen um, everywhere throughout your life. Anyways, I'll pass it off now.
Alright. Circadian rhythms in the blood barrier. Most importantly, circadian rhythms maintain your brain health by regulating the blood-brain barrier and its integrity, and the neurovascular unit, which regulates brain blood flow. Disruption of these two leads to their breakdown, or more specifically, blood-brain barrier breakdown, which increases brain inflammation and waste buildup. The brain now becomes more vulnerable to Alzheimer's disease, which is usually considered dementia and the inability to create new memories, by higher amyloid beta buildup as waste. Along with that is Parkinson's disease, which disrupts your motor skills via disrupting dopamine regulation. Epilepsy, can give you seizures due to bright flashing lights, and most likely due to that increased inflammation of the brain, which lowers the seizure threshold. Brain metastasis. Since the brain-blood barrier has weaker integrity, this allows your cancer cells to spread to the brain. This can increase the chance of brain cancer. And finally, stress disorders. Due to the brain being weakened, this disrupts the stress hormone regulation, leading to constant feelings of stress, anxiety, and outbursts due to those. Therefore, it leads to chronic stress. Besides all the other reasons on why this matters, On top of feeling tired and fatigued, sleep disorder and sleep deprivation can lead to your lower reaction times. As talked about earlier by Nick, lower reaction lower reaction times makes accidents more likely to happen, such as the incident that happened on the on Axum Valderez. Along with that is difficulty learning, remembering, or making decisions, such as the increased to Alzheimer's and your brain overall being weaker, which can damage the ability to make decisions or remembering, and personality changes such as irritability and stress due to the stress hormone being unregulated, which will cause stress to which can cause constant stress and thus lead to irritability. Sleep deprivation also contributes to the development of obesity, dementia, type 2 diabetes, depression, and finally heart disease. Obesity via your brain being unable to regulate the burning of fat. Dementia by increased weakness to stuff like Alzheimer's and other memory diseases. Type 2 diabetes to, as stated earlier, by obesity, unable to properly get rid of carbs. Depression due to your brain being unable to regulate emotions, as seen earlier by the stress. And finally, heart disease, which, as your body is just generally weaker, along with your brain being weaker.
All right. And sort of wrapping up with some final notes before we show references and this presentation. Um, Sleep disorders and sleep deprivation can obviously cause a lot of negative effects. So when we're talking about stuff like coffee and we're talking about stuff which and insomnia and staying up late to do homework assignments and a lot of these things which affect students, it's it's a very good idea to avoid disrupting to avoid those sort of risk factors because in the end they're not really worth it. Um, as shown through this presentation, interrupting your circadian rhythms can uh, introduce a lot of negative effects in the body. You're thinking dementia and diabetes and lower reaction times and what else. So um, beyond the direct negative effects of sleep disorders and sleep deprivation, um, this matters because um, it hopefully motivates people to avoid some of the risk factors that affect their sleep cycle. As shown through this presentation, interrupting that default mode network is can lead to very bad sleep um, and not remembering as much and so on.
If there's
So
one thing that you wish that you should remember from this entire presentation, is that your brain and your body in general need sleep to recover. You cannot replace it by caffeine or just trying to stay awake too much. That will lead to eventual death and the degradation of your body.
thank you for listening. Here are references and yeah, thank you.